For some reason, this girl, after finding out my deepest, darkest secret, would not leave my house to the point where she kept coming up to me saying, Baba, please, I care about you more than her. I want to be with you. Like, what? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Baba, and welcome back to another embarrassing but crazy story. Now, this story all takes place back when I was in grade 8. And in grade 8, I was actually a really basic middle schooler. Not gonna lie, I wasn't anything special, and all I did was mostly play video games. But I remember basically there was one time where, as I was basically walking home from school, I ended up seeing my mom drive right past me. Now, this was usually normal, but at this time, for some reason, she actually ended up moving to the side of the road, parking her vehicle and saying, Baba, come inside the car. I want to talk to you. You can't just tell me at the house? No, Baba, come. Let me get you home. At this moment, I thought she was actually just showing love and affection like every mom usually does. But then when I sit inside the car, I realized there are two other people also in the vehicle. And one of them was my mom's friend that I already knew from her work. But the other girl, well, it was a major surprise. Because the girl that was sitting right behind me was actually, funny enough, in the same middle school as me. And she was also in the same grade. And I remember looking at her, totally curious of why she was sitting right behind me. But then afterwards, when we finally got to the house, we ended up sitting inside and going inside the living room. And that's when my mom explained, Baba, this is my friend from work, and this is her new adopted daughter. Oh, adopted. Now, I think this was one of the first people I ever met that was adopted. And comment down below if you're adopted. But honestly, I never expected to actually meet someone that was adopted into a family. So I remember when I looked at her, I tried not to look at her any different and basically shook her hand, even though she looked nothing like her claimed mother. But I remember me and her, we ended up going upstairs to my room and we just started hanging out. We purely were friends and we didn't do anything at all. Obviously, I was still weirded out by her and I didn't like consider us close at all, but I tried being nice to her knowing that she was adopted, which I know it sounds really bad. Everyone should be nice to everyone anyways, but you can understand I was really young and this was my first time ever meeting a person that was adopted. Going on with the story, I remember after they ended up leaving, my mom ends up sitting beside me in the bedroom and she says to me, Baba, she's a very sweet girl and I know she's lonely at school. Can you please just be friends with her a little bit more? What do you mean? Well, I don't know, like be around her more, be supportive of her. Yeah, sure, mom, I can do that, is what I said. Totally questioning why she's leaving me in charge of someone that's literally the same age as me. Like, I can't even take care of myself. But honestly, I ended up just accepting it and decided to be a good son and basically did my duties. I remember when I got to school and I saw her, I would first wave at her and just be friendly, but then I started to realize this girl is a lot more than she seems. Because I remember from me literally only just waving at her, she ends up walking up to me and hanging out with me. I didn't mind it at first, don't get me wrong, you know, she was adopted, I'm gonna be nice to her. But then she kept doing it over and over again, to the point where she started hanging out with me a lot more, even if I did not want her around. And it was really hard to hang out with the guy friends that I knew because, well, they didn't want to be around her, but I wanted to be around my guy friends, so it kind of got really difficult. It got to the point where, honestly, not gonna lie, my guy friends started being really mean about it after I explained to them how she was adopted and stuff, so I ended up cutting them off little by little. And I started hanging out with this girl more and more. But that led to a lot more troubles, because I remember it got to the point where she would basically come to my house every day, and me and her actually became really close. She started telling me a lot about herself and, you know, her journey through the adoption center and stuff. And me, well, I don't know, I kind of just ended up giving references from SpongeBob to Call of Duty and seeing if I could maybe make her laugh here and there. I don't know, I was just trying to be the nice guy that my mom wanted me to be. But I remember later on in the weeks when I went to school, I started to realize there was a rumor going around about me that apparently me and this girl were dating. I don't know why people were thinking this until I ended up going to one of my friends in school and asked him, yo, bro, did you hear the rumor that like I'm dating her?
Oh yeah, dude, like apparently you guys are like always hanging out together and like people saw her going into your house, so yeah, we thought you guys were dating.
And at that moment it all made sense. People thought I was dating her because, well, she really had no one else. She would only hang out with me and me alone. I started to feel annoyed at first, but then I started to realize that, you know, this is all coming from a really dark place. And I just thought, you know what, people are gonna think of me weird, let them be. This is actually one of the most uncommon times in my life where I would actually feel right about doing something even though many disagreed. But I remember me and her, we kept hanging out, and well, this is where the story gets tricky. Because as you guys may know, I'm a helpless romantic, and I had a middle school crush that I mentioned many times on this channel. And basically, I started to realize in my grade 8 year that my middle school crush actually somewhat had an interest in me. I had no idea why, and no one else did, to be fair, but a rumor went around that she was interested in me, but at the same time didn't go for me or say anything to me about it because I apparently had a girlfriend, and that was the adopted girl that my mom wanted me to hang out with in the first place. Now, I remember when I heard about this from my friend, I ended up freaking out, and I started to think, oh my goodness, wait, she likes me? Oh my goodness, no way, no way. And I remember as I was about to walk up to her and basically kind of shoot my shot, I remember this adopted girl that my mom wanted me to hang out with, which sounds really mean to keep calling her the adopted girl, but you guys guys understand. She ends up coming up to me right before I could walk up to my crush and says, "Hey, Baba, what are you up to?" I was about to, you know what? Never mind. What are you up to? And I ended up walking off with her instead. And I knew this wasn't a good idea because, well, it kept painting the image to my crush that I was seeing her instead of being actually interested in my crush. So obviously, I was in a little bit of a pickle. And I knew that I wanted to do something about it. And, well, this is where the story gets a lot worse. Because I remember going to my house and basically my mom ended up setting up a sleepover for me and her friend's daughter that was adopted. And basically, to be honest, I didn't really mind because it was the weekend, it wasn't at school, and no one could, you know, see me hanging out with her at my place. And me and her, by the way, only had a good friendship relationship, okay? I had no feelings for her whatsoever. And you guys probably think that's really bizarre, knowing that I'm literally the guy that always does the devil's tango. But honestly, you gotta understand, in grade 8, I was a pretty simple person, okay? I was pretty innocent-ish, because that's the year I also lost it, but that's a story for another time. Going on, though, I remember when she was over at my place, me and her started playing Call of Duty and doing all the things I like. For some reason, she started really, you know, enjoying the things I did with my day-to-day life, and she would always try to join in with me. She even got an Xbox 360 just to play Call of Duty with me. And I remember on this specific day, though, on Friday, when she came over, she seemed like she had something to tell me. Now, I didn't know what she wanted to tell me, and I was super questioning what was going on with her, but she kept saying things like, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, I'll tell you later. Don't worry about it." And I decided to basically move on from the subject. And I remember as me and her were playing Call of Duty that entire night, basically, I ended up going on my phone and I ended up seeing on my Instagram page a photo of my crush hanging out with one of the dudes at my school. Now, at this point, I started to panic because first my crush actually like had an interest in me, and now she doesn't because I'm hanging out with this girl. And that's when I thought of the plan to basically tell the girl that my mom wanted me to hang out with the truth, and that she can't hang around me so much because, well, I have an interest in my middle school crush. So I remember as time went on, I ended up basically pausing the game and I looked at her and I said, "Hey, so honestly, I wanted to tell you this for a long time, and like, don't get me wrong, I think you're great and everything." And that's when she stopped. She's like, "Baba, I know what you're gonna say, and honestly, I feel the same way." "You do?" "Yeah, like, I totally understand, and trust me, like, I felt like this for a long time as well." "Oh, I didn't know that. Why didn't you say anything?" "Well, like, I kind of wanted you to say it first, but honestly, like, now that we're finally being truthful with each other, Baba, I want you to know that I really have a hardcore crush on you, and now that you have a crush on me, maybe we could actually like make it official." At that moment, I just froze in place. I'm like, "Bro, no way she just said she had a crush on me." And that's when I looked at her and I said, "Whoa, I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually have a crush on this girl." And that's when I said my middle school crush's name. At that moment, she started to freak out at me. She started yelling at me, screaming at me, and she started making a whole conundrum. It was actually really bad. And I remember it got to the point where I was praying my mom would run into my room, but for some reason she wasn't coming into my room at all. I started to panic and worry and super confused, so I ended up running downstairs as she was yelling at me, and I ended up looking for my mom. But my mom wasn't there, neither was her mom, and apparently they went out to like the bar or something. So I remember as I had this girl yelling at me, I kept telling her, "Yo, just leave me alone, okay? Like, I'm sorry I told you." "No, Baba, what does she have that I don't? Like, I don't get it. Like, seriously? Like, you like her? What, because she's more popular than me? Is that it? Is it because she's popular?" At this moment, I tried to look away and just basically tried to ignore her. I even put on my Xbox gaming headset and full on blasted it just so I could maybe drain out the noise of her yelling. But nothing would do it. She kept yelling and screaming and even got to the point where she refused to leave my house. No joke, I kept telling her, "Bro, just like get out of here." "No, I'm not leaving your house, okay? You are mine and that's final." At that moment, I'm like, what do you mean?" And that's when she started to try to actually take off my pants. Now, I know that sounds insane, and YouTube, don't demonetize this video. I'm just saying this because this was the most insane thing that's ever happened in my life. But going on, I remember my mom and her friend ended up finally coming home, and I thought this was finally the moment where this girl could leave me alone. But when my mom ended up hearing the screaming coming from my room, she runs upstairs and says, "Baba, what's happened? What's going on?" "Mom, tell her to leave me alone. I don't want to hang out with her anymore." Oh my goodness, Bubba's mom, you gotta understand, he is actually a jerk, okay? For some reason, like after showing all my love and affection, he won't love me back. At that moment, I remember seeing my friend's mom just looking down and just ashamed of herself, which to be fair, if I adopted someone that was psycho like she was, I would be too. And basically my mom ended up telling her friend to like leave me alone, but for some reason, the girl kept yelling, "No, Mom, you can't let me leave Bubba alone. I'm in love with him and he's mine. I'm staying right here." And it got to the point where, funny enough, we had to call the cops just to let her leave because my friend's mom didn't want to like drag her out of the house because, well, she was still going through the adoption papers, and anything that seems, you know, traumatic and triggering could ruin the adoption forms for her. So we ended up getting the cops involved and basically ended up doing it in a way where she wouldn't get in trouble as well. Honestly, it was a real crazy experience, and I'm gonna say this, bro. If you guys aren't adopted, then press the subscribe button for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.